Now, we all have people in our lives we engage in a conversation with, and we get so drawn into it that you look at your watch and like 2 hours have passed. And our next speaker is such a person for me. I've spent lots of time with her talking about literature, about culture, about menopause, Spanish phrases particularly as well. So please welcome on stage una mujer que habla por los codos, que no viene con los pelos como Feni la loca, y porque éramos mucho y parió la abuela, whatever that means. Please welcome on stage Melissa Bosano.
Thanks, Julian. Good morning. I'm really pleased to have made it. Hablo por lo codo. Good morning. I'm really pleased to have made it to the GibTalks stage after years of sitting in the audience with my sister. But I do remember now why I said no to Julian the first time he asked, because this is petrifying. But bear with me. I'll get there. So I didn't quite know what to talk about today when we first started discussing this, and I tried to think of something that sort of linked all of the different roles that I play in my life, as we all do. We all play different roles. So the one thing that I found that unified my experience as a parent, as a teacher, as a pastoral lead in the sixth form, as a coach, was this interest in how we navigate life and how we navigate our choices and the challenges that we have in making those choices. So there's lots of metaphors for life. Some people like to think of it as a marathon instead of a sprint. Some people like to think of it as a puzzle, and you start with a border and you sort your colors, and then you try and find that one piece that will complete you. A blank canvas ready to make your mark, a roller coaster. We're all familiar with the screams and the ups and the downs. William Shakespeare compared life to performance in Macbeth's nihilistic Life's but a walking shadow speech at the end of the play. And another one of my favorites, Christina Rossetti, in her devotional poem Uphill, describes it as this long, long mountain where you have to trudge and toil and really work your way up this hill, and hopefully at the end find this comfy bed to lay your head down in paradise. I like the metaphor of a car journey. So we start off in the back in our car seat, strapped in. We don't have much control over where we're going. We're taken care of. We don't have control of the music. But then eventually we graduate to the front seat, sometimes as a passenger, and eventually as the driver of the car. Some of us fail our first driving test, but then we're in control and we decide what music's playing, where we're going, what speed we're going at. We decide which exit we take at the next roundabout. We decide who's traveling in the car with us. And we decide when to pull over and ask them to get out. We have baggage in our boot. Sometimes we empty it, sometimes we carry it. And we all know what kind of car we drive. Is it polished and valeted and smelling really fresh? Or is it full of beach sand and wrappers and pine needles from El Pinal del Rey? We are in control of our own car, and therein lies the difficulty. So the title of this talk was taken from a poem that explores that. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost is a 1915 poem, and in it he describes a path through the wood, and the two paths diverge. Now, the stats for this poem, or the title of the poem, are amazing. It's been the title of 12 television series episodes. Its lines have been used in about 2,000 news stories from 1980 to 2016 alone. The phrase, "the road not taken," appears as a title, subtitle, or chapter heading in more than 400 books on subjects ranging from political theory all the way to a theoretical zombie apocalypse. and now one GibTalk. It's famous, it's popular. It speaks to our collective interest about navigating life and the choices we make. And there is a line in the poem that says, I took the road not taken, or I took the one less traveled by, sorry. And this has led many to see the poem as one for the rebels, no, for the people who march to the beat of their own drum, the nonconformists, the individuals. But Frost himself said that this was a tricky poem because in the poem, he describes both paths as just as fair. And Frost said that the poem is about being forced to make one choice, never knowing what's behind door number 2, because we rarely, if ever, go back. And when we make one choice, we cut out the others. And that's a lot of pressure. This isn't the film Sliding Doors. How many of you have seen Sliding Doors? So for those of you who haven't, Gwyneth Paltrow's character makes one choice and we follow her story. But then sort of it rewinds and she makes the other choice and we follow that story instead. And we get to see both options and what happens at the end. It's a good film, but that's not life. We need to make choices as we travel through life. It is a lot of pressure, and it's something that I see every day in the young people I work with, in my own children. What if I make the wrong choice? What if this one leads me down a path and I end up over there when I started over here? And the pressure sets in early on. So at 14, children are choosing subjects that they will study at GCSE. At 16, they decide whether to stay in school or not. If they do, then more subject choices. At 18, work, travel, a gap year, university, a vocational pathway, which courses. And that's just school. What about the sports you play, the friends you make, the languages you learn, your partner, whether to have children? The list goes on and on and on. There is a lot of pressure, and in modern life, there are, especially with the rise of social media, there's a lot of noise, there are a lot of opinions, especially and including, those of the people around us who wish us well. And to add to the difficulty in navigating these choices, we're working with incomplete information because we don't know what's just around the corner, and also we don't know the impact of the choices other people are making in their lives that will have an effect on our life. Because we're all just part of this constantly evolving tapestry that's being created stitch by stitch, choice by choice. Another metaphor. And then sometimes we don't make the choice, but the choice is made for us, and we have to take a quick detour. So at 18, I got pregnant at the end of my A-levels, and this wasn't meant to happen. I was going to university. I had a place at the University of Sheffield. I was a straight A student. And all of a sudden, I had to choose what to do. So I didn't go to university. I got married, and I had my son, who is here somewhere. He's 28 now. And a couple of years later, after that, I had my second son, who's also here. And then I started a degree through the Open University. And my story isn't unique. It's just another example of side roads and detours and what we do with the things that come across our path. And there's been a lot of unexpected side roads. Teacher training at 28, separation, a new relationship, 2 more children in my mid to late 30s. Hey, Oz, Jamila. A master's, and then qualifying as a coach. And, you make decisions as best as you can. Sometimes you feel like you're winging it. And there's been a lot of tuta loca when I've made some of these decisions, but we go with our gut. And then when I trained as a coach, I learned about core values. Now, as a coach, many of the people who sit across from me feel, they've reached a bit of an impasse, not necessarily with other people, with themselves. Maybe the reality doesn't quite match up to the expectation. And they ask, what choices have led me to this point? Now, coaching takes a person as they are and where they want to go, but what happens if you don't know where you want to go? And this is where values come in. So With the time that I've got left, I'd like to show you, instead of talk to you about it, because they are our sat-nav for life. So you've got a bit of paper that you were given, and if you've worked with me in a coaching capacity in any way, shape or form, in a group or as an individual, you've probably done this. But you've got a bit of you've got about 60 odd words on that paper. And I think maybe we might need a little bit more light for this part of the talk. I'd invite you, if you want to have a go at this, to take a look at those, that long list of words. These are all values. And have a go and see if you can circle the top 10 that most jump out at you. I'm not very sure if you can see properly. Yeah? Ah, there you go. Thank you. And now I can see all of you as well. So have a go at circling the top 10. Go with your gut. Don't overthink this. You need to let your gut your intuition do the talking. And obviously we don't have bags and bags of time, but we have a little bit of time. The top 10 that most jump out as things that you value above all others. Now, at some point, some of you might start thinking, well, no, but spirituality and love mean the same thing, so I'm going to keep those two as one. And you start bargaining with yourself, and that's fine. It's what it means to you. You need to end up with 10. Okay. And then, once you've got your top 10, whatever those top 10 are, have a go now at narrowing them down to 5. And it doesn't mean that you don't like the other ones anymore. It just means that these 5 are slightly more important. You cannot live without these 5 things in your life, whatever those 5 things are. Okay. Once you've got your 5, obviously, you know what's coming next. We're going to need to narrow it down even more to 3. So again, it doesn't mean that you don't like the other 2 anymore. You like them, just not as much as the top 3. And I think at this stage, everybody knows. Know what I'm going to say next? You need to, go for your top 1. The top 1 word on your list of words that you cannot do without. It has to stay over and above the others. Now, just quick show of hands. How many of you found that very, very easy to do? Okay, so some people do. Some people are ruthless. And how many of you found it, ridiculously difficult? Some people do. You just don't know what to let go of. And how many of you found that the word that you've ended up with, if somebody had asked you at 9 a.m., what's your top value? You would have said that. Yeah, okay. And how many of you have reached something completely unexpected? Okay, a few of you. So when I did this exercise, my top value turned out to be peace. And I thought, what? I have 4 children. I work in a school full of 1,400 teenagers. And then the penny dropped. Of course, peace is valuable to me. So I'm not going to take myself off to the Bahamas for a week by myself, but I can carve out little bits of peace every day so that I fulfill the value that is my top value. Seth Godin says that owning our choices is a celebration of our future agency. You don't get yesterday over again, but you do get to make new choices tomorrow. Knowledge is power, and knowledge about ourselves and who we really are is invaluable. And imagine if we had all this information at 18 when we're making major choices. My life looks nothing like I planned at 18. I was going to be an orthoptist. I would have been working in a hospital, GHA, NHS, I don't know. But I've done my best to be true to my values as I've navigated life and as I've made my choices with my intuition, even before I knew the name values. And I can honestly say that I'm glad I took the road less traveled by, because it has made all the difference. Thank you for listening.